My aunt died and left me her laptop because I'm the tech one. I sat on her couch with a trash bag and a screwdriver, ready for boring. Photos, emails, old recipes, normal grief chores. The apartment still had her stuff in the exact places she liked it, like she'd just stepped out to be mad at a cashier. My mom wanted anything sentimental. My cousins wanted anything worth money. I got handed the dirty work and a charger that smelled like dust. I just come from the funeral home where my uncle argued with the director about the price of flowers, like bargaining could fix death. I wanted a task I could finish. The thing booted slow, fan whining, and the desktop finally popped up. Right in the middle sat a folder labeled weddings. She never went to weddings. She hated crowds. She hated people. That was her whole personality. She'd show up to family shit, count down the minutes, then disappear with her coat half on. So seeing weddings on her screen felt like catching her with lipstick on. I clicked it and felt my throat tighten. It wasn't wedding photos. It was videos shot from a distance. Couples kissing outside venues, women in heels wobbling to cars, drunk bridesmaids bent over curbs, crying in alleyways. Every file name had a location and a time. Not like Sarah underscore like, more like evidence. The angle stayed low and wrong, like the camera sat inside a tote bag with the zipper cracked. Wind hit fabric. People laughed. Somebody threw up. In one clip, a bride stood behind a dumpster with her veil bunched in her fists, mascara running. Phone pressed her ear. Whoever filmed it held steady for 2 full minutes. No comfort. No moving away. Just recording her like she was a show. I backed out, then saw another folder beside it. Hotels. Same vibe. Same stalking distance. Hallway footage. Doors. Keycards. Women dragging suitcases. Checking room numbers. Unaware they were being recorded. Sometimes the lens hid behind a plant in a lobby. Sometimes it stared through a crack in a door. One video caught a woman dropping her keycard, cursing, bending to pick it up, and whoever filmed it didn't move away. They leaned in. Another showed a woman in a towel, peeking into the hall, then yanking the door shut like she'd heard something. The camera stayed right there, pointed at the peephole, waiting. My brain tried to do excuses. Maybe she did private investigations. Maybe she worked security. Maybe she had some weird true crime obsession. Then I noticed how the files were organized. Venue name, date time, target angle, usable send. She tagged people like inventory. A folder called client sat on the desktop like it belonged there. Inside were subfolders with usernames and burner emails. Each one had clipped videos, screenshots of DMs, and little notes like send after payday or new job, HR email. The lines hit me in the face. Pay to delete. Your husband will love this. Your boss will love this. Last chance. Not memories. Ammunition. People begged in plain, exhausted sentences. Please don't. I can't afford that. I have kids. I'll lose my job. My aunt replied like a billing department. Amount. Deadline. Crypto address. One thread had an invoice PDF, like she was running a fucking plumbing business. I clicked a file called payments and saw rows and rows of dates with amounts, wallets, and little check marks. Not thousands, usually. 200. 500. Special, 900. Enough to hurt, but not enough to make most people go to cops if they were ashamed. Next to some names, she wrote stuff like repeat and easy and panics fast. I felt my face get hot. I muttered, "You nasty bitch," and then I started shaking because it sounded like I was talking to a corpse. I kept scrolling and found another folder, smaller, called deletions. That one had screenshots of people sending money and my aunt replying, deleted, but then the same person would show up again weeks later in a different clip. Same face, new location. She didn't delete shit. She recycled them. I sat there sweating, staring at the screen, trying to match it with the woman who used to hand me cookies and complain about loud neighbors. I heard her voice in my head saying, "Always so proud, I mind my business." Yeah, sure. I thought about how she always angled her phone at family gatherings, not for selfies, but like she was checking reflections in the glass behind us. I remembered her asking weird questions about my job, my commute where I parked. I'd brushed it off as nosy old lady stuff. Now it felt like her brain just ran on collecting. Anger showed up fast. Not dramatic anger, practical anger, the kind that makes you move. I started copying everything to a drive because I knew the second I called anyone, someone could wipe it. My hand shook so hard I kept missing the USB port. I jammed it in wrong twice and swore out loud like she could hear me. Files started crawling over. Hundreds of videos, spreadsheets, receipts for tiny cameras, notes about venues, notes about hotel layouts. There was a tab called Weddings, Best Exits, and another called Hotels, Floor Cams. She'd built routines. She'd built a system. While it copied, I kept opening random files like I needed to punish myself. I found a photo of a black tote bag with a hole burned through the lining, lens peeking out. I found a checklist that said battery full and hair down to hide earpiece. Earpiece? For what, a wedding? I found a saved draft that was just a template thread. This will be sent to your employer and your partner if payment isn't received. Copy-paste cruelty. My phone buzzed. My mom asking if I'd found any pictures of us. I didn't answer. My cousin called and I picked up because my hands needed something to do besides shake. He asked if the laptop had banking info. I told him it has blackmail. He went quiet, then got mean, like I'd insulted him. He said I was being sick, that I was looking for reasons to hate her, that I should stop snooping and bring it to him. I told him to shut the fuck up and hung up. Then he texted, "Don't ruin her memory." Like her memory wasn't already ruining mine. That's when the laptop's webcam light blinked on by itself while I was copying. Just clicked on. Steady. I hadn't opened anything that needed a camera. No video call. No settings. Nothing. I slammed the lid shut like an idiot, heart punching my ribs, and sat there listening to the building breathe. My mouth went dry and I tasted pennies. I opened the lid a crack and the light was still on, like it wanted me to know. Then it went off, like someone blinked back. I realized what scared me more than the green light. She didn't run this alone. You don't make burner accounts and schedules and client folders for a hobby you keep to yourself. Somebody else knew how to log in. Somebody else might still be logging in. I pictured some other person somewhere watching the screen, watching me copy, deciding what to do about the tech one with the screwdriver. I opened it again fully. The copy window kept going like nothing happened. I yanked the Wi-Fi off anyway. I unplugged her router. I checked the tray for weird apps, anything called remote, but she named everything normal, like she planned for someone like me to look. I kept copying and kept thinking about strangers on those videos going back to work on Monday, having no idea they'd been turned into leverage. When the transfer finally finished, the little complete sound made me flinch. I held the drive like it was hot. I took quick pictures of the screen with my phone, wallet addresses, file names, the list of emails because I didn't trust the laptop not to vanish the second I looked away. I called the non-emergency line and tried to explain without sounding insane. The dispatcher asked if my aunt was alive. I said no. She asked if anyone was in danger right now. I stared at that closed bedroom door, at the curtains, at the fact that this quiet apartment had been a factory, and I didn't know what to say. I said, I think she's been extorting people for years, and even saying it out loud felt like spitting. After I hung up, I just sat there for a minute, hands on my knees, listening for any sound that didn't belong. My eyes kept snapping to the webcam. I kept waiting for that light again. I didn't stay long after that. I packed the laptop back into its sleeve like it could leak. On the way out, I caught my reflection in her hallway mirror and I looked like a thief. I kept expecting the webcam to burn through the fabric. In the days after, my family fought the way families fight after someone dies. Loud, petty, selfish. My cousin kept calling me dramatic. My mom kept asking me to let it go because she's gone. They wanted grief that looked clean. They wanted a version of her they could still defend. They didn't want to picture her stalking drunk women outside hotels, waiting for them to slip, zooming in, saving the clip, tagging it with a time and a place. And that's the part one can't swallow. The worst part wasn't the content. It was the thought that she'd been sitting there for years, sipping tea, smiling at holidays, while she built a little private business out of humiliating strangers. The guy in the yellow vest waved like he owned the sidewalk. He stood under the one working streetlight by the parking structure, exactly where the campus escort pickup point sits. He held a clipboard. He had a radio clipped to his chest. He looked right enough that my tired brain wanted to stop thinking. My head was full of numbers and caffeine and that dead-eyed finals tunnel where you just want your bed. My phone was dying. The shuttle had stopped running. I planned to hit the escort pickup, wait a minute, then cut across to the dorm if nobody showed. I'd used that spot a dozen times. It was supposed to be simple. Stand in the circle of light, look harmless, get walked home. He made it look simple too. Yellow vest, stance like he belonged there, clipboard tucked to his chest like he had a list with my name on it. He even did the little wave people do when they're trying to be helpful, but not weird. My tired brain tried to accept it. My body didn't. I walked past him anyway, and he stepped into my path, smiling like I was being rude for not trusting a stranger at 11:40 p.m. He reached for my arm, and I slapped his hand away without even planning it. His smile snapped. He grabbed my wrist harder, like he wanted to correct me. I twisted and felt his nails dig in. I shoved him into the concrete pillar, and his radio clacked off his vest. He didn't say hey, or stop, or I'm security. He didn't say anything. He just squeezed and leaned, trying to turn me so my back hit the pillar. My backpack snagged on the rough concrete, and I felt my shoulder wrench. I drove my forearm into his chest and shoved again. The clipboard slipped and slapped the ground. Paper flashed under the light. It was clean. No log, no roster, no forms. Just blank sheets clipped to make the right sound. The radio wasn't on. No lights. No channel. Just plastic. It hit the concrete and bounced like a toy. I scooped it up and thumbed the side, expecting a beep, anything. Nothing. The volume dial spun loose. The antenna bent. My stomach went cold in that slow, heavy way, like my body had already decided this was real danger and my brain was catching up late. He lunged for the radio. Not careful, not official, just grabbing. I yanked back and his other hand shot for my wrist again. He was trying to keep me inside that little pool of light, right where people could glance over and think, oh, campus safety, and keep walking. I yanked his badge off to throw it, and the campus safety logo peeled up like a cheap sticker over blank metal. That's when a cold hit my stomach. Not a uniform, a costume. The second that sticker lifted, his face went hard. No friendly act. No his might. He stared at the badge like I'd grabbed his wallet. He reached for it fast, and when I pulled away, he stepped in and pinned my arm against my ribs with his body. I felt his nails bite again. I heard my own breath go ragged, loud in my ears. I stopped thinking about being polite. I thought about getting to something that records. He lunged for the badge like it mattered more than my wrist. I swung it into his face and ran toward the emergency phone pole, the stupid blue light that feels corny until you're sprinting for it like it's oxygen. The badge edge clipped his cheekbone. He made a noise like anger, not pain. He followed close, but he didn't sprint, and that scared me worse than a chase. It felt measured, like he was letting me burn energy while he stayed ready to grab if I fumbled. My shoes slipped on grit. My backpack bounced and pulled me off balance. I grabbed the pole with one hand and hammered the button with the other. I slammed the button. The speaker crackled. He stopped moving the second the camera turned on. He backed away fast, hands up, already rehearsing innocence with his posture. It was instant. Predator to reasonable guy in a blink. He angled himself so the camera got his open palms. He took slow steps back like he was calming me down. I started shouting into the speaker before the operator even fully answered. I said he grabbed me. I said his badge was fake. I said his radio was plastic. I said he was right there, backing up because the camera was on. I kept my voice loud because quiet is how things get filed under misunderstanding. The dorm lobby doors popped and people spilled out, half-dressed, confused, then alert when they heard the word fake. Two girls lifted their phones and started filming. A guy on the steps yelled at the vest guy to back off. The vest guy didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He didn't run. He just held the pose like he'd practiced it in a mirror. The patrol car took minutes. Those minutes stretched like a sick joke. I kept one hand on the pole like it was a weapon and the other on my wrist where it throbbed. The vest guy drifted along the hedge line, still visible, still calm, like he wanted witnesses to see him as cooperative and me as the problem. When the officers finally arrived, they walked up slow, like they'd been called for an argument, not an assault. I shoved the badge and the radio at them and talked fast, messy, angry. One officer looked at the badge, peeled the sticker with his thumb, and his eyebrows jumped when it lifted clean. Good. I wanted that moment of oh shit to land. They asked the guy for ID. He patted his pockets like he'd forgotten. They asked who his supervisor was. He shrugged. New hire. Covering. Lost his real badge. Radio broke. He said it all in a calm voice, and I could see how he'd survive this. He wasn't banking on getting away clean every time. He was banking on doubt. One of the girls tried to tell the officers she had video. The officer waved her off at first, then took the phone when she insisted. Another student started arguing, asking why the hell they weren't cuffing him. The officer snapped back about procedure and no escalation. I stepped between them and said, loud, that grabbing my wrist and blocking my path was already escalation. I held up the cuts. I made them look. They pulled the guy aside, talked low, then did the thing that still makes me nauseous. They told him to leave the area. That's it. Leave the area. No cuffs. No ride. No detention. He nodded like he'd been asked to move his car from a loading zone. He walked off into the dark between the parking structure and the hedges, slow and smooth, and he never once looked hurried. I yelled after him anyway, because I needed him to know he didn't get to keep this quiet. The officer told me they'd follow up and asked if I wanted an escort back to my dorm, like that patched the hole. I went back with strangers because my friends were asleep and I couldn't stand being alone in the hallway. I locked my door and took pictures of my wrist in case somebody tried to tell me later it was nothing. I emailed the video request myself in the morning because I didn't trust follow-up. Campus sent out a safety email 2 days later with tips about staying in well-lit areas. No mention of an impersonator. No warning about yellow vests. Just the usual gentle blame. I went into the safety office the next day and made them listen while I described the sticker peeling off, the fake radio, the way he grabbed and tried to turn me into the pillar. The guy behind the desk kept trying to soften it. He called it a misunderstanding and typed suspicious mail like that covered it. He asked if I was sure it wasn't an event vest. He asked if I'd had anything to drink. That question lit me up. I told him I was sober, tired, and pissed, and that I wasn't going to let them file it as some vague warning. A week later, they emailed back saying the camera angle wasn't ideal and they couldn't identify him. They offered to increase patrols and sent me a link to a self-defense workshop. No warning to students about fake vests. No photo. No heads up at the pickup point. Just paperwork and blame with nicer words. After that, every yellow vest on campus set off my nerves. One night, I saw another one near the same structure, standing half in the dark, and my body reacted before my brain did. I turned, went straight into the dorm lobby, and planted myself under the lights until my hands stopped shaking. That's the part that stuck. How easy it was for him to steal the feeling of being safe with nothing but a costume. After that, I stopped trusting uniforms. I watched hands. I watched where people stood. I stopped waiting in that pickup circle under the flickering light. I'd rather walk the long way in the cold than stand still and look easy. I slammed the button. The speaker crackled. He stopped moving the second the camera turned on. He backed away fast, hands up, already rehearsing innocence with his posture. I kept yelling anyway, loud enough to drag people out of the dorm lobby. He didn't run. He walked off calm, like he'd be back tomorrow in a different vest, because predators don't always hunt with speed. Sometimes they hunt with routine. My chain was latched and my deadbolt was thrown, but my door still moved when I leaned on it. That tiny give you feel when the frame isn't seated right. My stomach tightened immediately because I'm not gentle with doors. I would have noticed. I had 2 grocery bags cutting into my fingers, keys already out, brain on autopilot. I leaned again, harder, like maybe I was imagining it. Same little shift. Not a lot. Enough. The hallway was quiet in that cheap building way, where you hear your own breathing and it pisses you off. I put my ear near the crack and held still. No TV, no fan, no sink running. Just a thick silence that felt like someone holding their breath with me. I unlocked it anyway and stepped in. My kitchen chair faced the hallway like someone set it up to watch my bedroom. Dead center, squared up. A glass sat on the counter with a half pour in it. Ring of sweat fresh on the laminate like it had been there minutes. I don't drink out of glasses. I grab the bottle and chug like a raccoon. I don't even buy glasses that look like that. My eyes kept bouncing between the chair and the hall opening. I didn't walk farther. My body went cold, then hot, then cold again. I noticed little shit that made it worse. The curtain by the sink wasn't yanked shut like I always do, and my dish towel was folded neat on the counter like somebody tried to be cute in my place. No mess, no broken stuff, just arranged, like they touched my routines and left fingerprints on them. I backed out slow, keeping my face neutral like that matters, and I heard a soft scuff from inside. Not the building settling, not pipes, a shoe dragging a fraction, someone shifting weight, trying not to sound like a person. I didn't say hello. Fuck that. I slammed the door with my shoulder as I stepped out. Then I kicked it hard so it hit the frame and made a big stupid bang, like I just come home loud on purpose. Then I ran down the hall and hammered my neighbor's door until it cracked open. He gave me that annoyed look people give when they think you're about to ask for a favor. I shoved my phone up and told him to call 911 because someone was inside my unit. He started with the "are you sure" bullshit, and I snapped that my chair was turned around like a goddamn theater seat and something was moving in my kitchen. He tried to tell me to calm down, like calm is a button you press. I told him if he didn't open his door wider, I was going to start screaming so the whole building could share the problem. That got him moving. I ducked into the stairwell, so I wasn't standing in the open like bait, and called 911 myself anyway. I kept my eyes locked on my door. I expected it to open. I expected a guy to stroll out like he owned the place. I expected running footsteps. Anything. Nothing. The operator asked if I could see anyone. I said no, but I heard them. I kept saying someone's in there, like repeating it made it solid. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. The neighbor hovered at his doorway, half hidden, like he wanted to watch without being part of it. I hated him for that and also understood it because I didn't want to be part of it either. 2 cops showed up and went in fast with flashlights, telling me to stay back. I stood on the landing and listened to my own apartment get searched like it wasn't mine anymore. Cabinet d'hospoped. Closet doors slid. The bathroom fan rattled on. That sound made my skin crawl because it meant they were in the room where the only weird clue lived. They called out that nobody was inside. Those words didn't settle anything. They made me angry, like I'd hallucinated the scuff. I walked in behind them anyway because I needed to see it with my own eyes and I needed them to see it with theirs. The chair was still facing the hall. The glass was still there like a prop. Nothing was missing. My laptop sat on my desk. My TV was untouched. My junk drawer hadn't been dumped. That should have made me feel better, but it didn't. It made it worse. If someone comes to steal, they move fast. This looked like someone had time. One cop kept poking at my front door, pushing on the frame, giving me theories about swollen wood and bad hinges. I told him I'm rough with my door and I would have noticed it feeling loose yesterday. He gave me that polite, sure face, like I was emotional and making stories. I lost it for a second and asked him why my door had a give it didn't have this morning, why my chair was lined up like it was waiting, why there was a glass that wasn't mine on my counter. He didn't answer. He just kept doing his little tests like he could outlogic my gut. The other cop asked me to slow down, asked me to point to anything else that was off. So I did. I showed them the curtain. I showed them my folded towel. It felt stupid, like I was explaining a haunting using laundry, but it was my life and it had been handled. Then the other cop stepped out of my bathroom, holding my vent cover like it was evidence. His whole posture changed. Not panicked, just sharper, like the boring call turned real. The vent had fresh screwdriver marks around the edges. Bright scratches, new. He asked if I'd been messing with it. I said I don't own a screwdriver set. I barely own a hammer. He leaned over my trash can and pulled out 4 little screws sitting right on top like someone placed them there for me to find. Not buried, not hidden, displayed. My legs went weak. I grabbed the sink and just stared at those screws like they were teeth. The cop asked about shared ducts, crawl space, roof access, maintenance hatches. I told him there's a ceiling panel on the 3rd floor where maintenance climbs up when the heat craps out. I told him sometimes my bathroom smells like other people's soap or cooking, and I always chalked it up to shitty ventilation. Saying it out loud made me nauseous because it meant air traveled, space traveled, a person could travel. The first cop stopped with the door hinge explanations. He got quiet, wrote things down, asked if I had anyone who might target me. I actually laughed, quick and ugly. I told him I'm not special. I'm not rich. I'm just a person in a building full of thin walls and cheap locks. They took pictures, did the basic motions, and told me they'd file a report and talk to the landlord. I called my landlord while they were still there because I wanted witnesses. He answered like I was interrupting his life. I told him someone got in through the vent and I needed maintenance now. He told me maintenance doesn't come out at night unless there's a flood. I told him I didn't give a shit. I wasn't sleeping under a vent some stranger, just unscrewed. He called me dramatic. That word lit me up. One of the cops took the phone from me and used that calm authority voice. And suddenly my landlord wasn't so brave. Suddenly it was first thing in the morning, someone will check it. We take security seriously, all that lying. The neighbor drifted closer like he deserved updates. I told him to go the fuck inside. He looked offended, like I'd broken some social rule, like my apartment hadn't just been used as a hallway. After the cops left, my place felt contaminated. The chair looked like it had a weight on it, even empty. The hallway to my bedroom looked longer than usual, like the air itself stretched. I packed a bag with shaking hands, wallet, passport, laptop, keys because my brain kept picturing someone above my ceiling listening to me breathe. I didn't even bother being polite with friends. I asked to crash. I didn't explain every detail because people argue with stories like this. They want an entry point. They want a reason. In the morning, I came back with a friend and made maintenance open the ceiling panel on the 3rd floor. He climbed up with a ladder like this was a Tuesday. He looked into the dark space and shrugged like it was nothing. He said the duct runs to a central shaft and, yeah, if someone gets up there, they can drop any units if the covers aren't secured. He said it like he was talking about a loose tile. I asked how someone gets up there. He said the hatch locks are the same on every floor and keys get lost and copied and nobody keeps track the way they should. That was it. That was the explanation. Not a monster, not a break-in, just access and apathy. Maintenance swapped my screws for longer ones and told me I should buy a camera. I wanted to scream at him that a camera doesn't stop a person who already learned my layout from inside my walls. When he left, I stood in my bathroom and stared up at the vent. It didn't look like plastic anymore. It looked like a mouth. I kept seeing that chair aimed at my bedroom like a joke only the person in my ceiling understood. I didn't sleep there again, not because I thought they'd return, because I couldn't stop picturing them sitting in my kitchen, drinking water, listening to my footsteps in the hall before I even got home.